It's kind of crazy to think about just how much childhood has changed, right? Like, little kids today grow up with screens practically from day one. And social media, it was really designed for us, for teenagers, adults, but now it's everywhere, even for kids younger than 8. And, that just brings up some huge questions about how all of that's shaping how they grow up.
It really does. And in this deep dive, we're going to try to unpack that.
Yeah.
The impact of social media and AI specifically on those really young kids. We dug through the research, all the latest stuff, so you can get a clear picture of what's going on. It's a complicated issue, but hopefully we can cut through all the noise.
Totally. We'll be looking at how this stuff affects their psychology, their development, how they learn social skills, their emotions, and then we'll get into AI and the role it plays in all of this, and of course, what we can actually do about it. We looked at all the important studies on screen time, how those little brains are developing in this digital world. It's fascinating. But, okay, let's dive right in. First up, the psychological stuff. Like, what do you, as a parent, really need to be aware of?
I think one of the most concerning things that jumps out is the link between social media use and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
We see it in teenagers. Those who spend a lot of time on social media have a much higher risk of anxiety and depression. And with even younger kids, the thing is they're constantly bombarded with this like curated, often completely unrealistic view of the world. And that can really make them feel like they're not good enough, especially at such a young age when they're still figuring out who they are.
Yeah, it's that constant stream of perfect lives and perfect moments, right? And for a kid who's still developing their sense of self, that comparison can be so damaging to their self-esteem.
Right. And another thing that's especially concerning to this age group is cyberbullying.
Hmm.
I mean, online harassment is awful for anyone, but for kids under 8, it can be even more overwhelming. Their emotional understanding just isn't fully developed yet, so they don't really have the tools to cope with that kind of negativity.
That's such an important point. And, we've all experienced how screen time messes with our sleep. But for little kids, it's even more important.
Absolutely. That blue light from screens before bed can completely disrupt their sleep, makes it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep. And good sleep is so essential for their brain development and emotional regulation. And then there's the whole issue of body image. The images they're seeing online, even the AI-generated ones, can start to influence how they see themselves and what they think is beautiful, and that can lead to a lot of problems down the road.
It's all connected, isn't it? So let's move on to developmental impacts. What are the key things to know about how screen time affects how kids grow and learn?
So the research actually shows that too much TV can cause delays in some pretty important areas, like attention, language development, even social skills. There's this thing called the video deficit effect. And it basically means that young kids learn better from real-life experiences than they do from watching a screen.
That makes sense, right? It's a difference between passively watching and actually experiencing something.
Exactly. And then super fast pace of social media can also mess with their attention spans. It makes it harder for them to focus on one thing for very long.
Yeah.
And you might see younger kids doing things online that they don't really understand, like talking to people they don't know.
Which leads us to emotional regulation, how kids learn to manage their feelings. How does all this digital input affect that crucial development?
What really makes you wonder about how their brains are developing. All this constant social media could actually change the way their brains are wired. And that can affect their ability to learn about emotions, control their impulses, and just generally regulate their feelings. AI might be able to help with this stuff someday, maybe even provide personalized support. But right now, too much screen time and not enough real-life interaction can really hold them back from developing those essential skills.
So while AI might have some potential down the line, it seems like the negative impacts are the bigger concern right now when it comes to emotional growth. What about social skills? We know social media connects people, but how does that play out for young kids who are just learning how to interact in person?
For these little kids under 8, you can't overstate how important those face-to-face interactions are. That's how they learn social cues, how to read people, how to develop empathy, which is the ability to understand other people's feelings. Too much screen time means they're missing out on those opportunities to learn those things. And yeah, AI can create things like social robots and chatbots, but those can't replace real human connection.
It's those subtle cues, right? The nonverbal communication that's so important. Okay, so let's talk specifically about AI within these social media platforms. How are these companies using AI in ways that parents should be aware of?
AI is everywhere. It's behind the scenes doing a lot of things you might not even realize. It decides what content your kids see, it targets them with ads, it helps with moderating content, and it personalizes their entire online experience.
And as you said before, some of that sounds good, like content moderation, but it also raises some red flags.
Exactly. AI can target children, sometimes by accident, sometimes not. It's not always clear what's going on, and that can make kids more vulnerable to certain things online. And then there are the algorithms themselves. They can create what are called filter bubbles, so kids are only exposed to certain types of content. And they can also amplify things that are really emotionally charged, which isn't good for anyone, especially developing minds.
So, looking at the big picture, what are the main dangers and risks of social media and AI for these really young children?
The risks are pretty serious. There's the increased risk of anxiety and depression, potential developmental delays, cyberbullying, exposure to things they shouldn't be seeing, privacy concerns, the potential for AI to be misused in some pretty scary ways, the spread of misinformation, and at the core of it all, it's the fact that it takes away from the real-world interactions they need.
It's a lot to take in, for sure. So, what can our listeners, who are probably mostly parents, actually do about this? What are some concrete steps?
The most important thing is to be proactive. Sets screen time limits. You can check out the guidelines from the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP, and the World Health Organization, the WHO. They have some good recommendations. And create tech-free zones in your home, maybe certain times a day when screens are off limits. Have open conversations with your kids about what they're doing online. Ask questions, be involved, and monitor their activity. Use parental control tools. Those are super important. And of course, the best thing you can do is be a good role model yourself. Show them what healthy tech use looks like. Make sure they have plenty of other activities to balance out their screen time. Get them outside, get them reading, get them doing creative things.
Those are some really great practical tips. And it's not just on parents to handle this, is it?
No, not at all. Educators have a big role to play, and so do the social media companies themselves. They need to step up and create a safer online world for kids.
So, to wrap up this deep dive, the big takeaway here is that those early years are so incredibly important, and the growing influence of social media and AI needs our attention. We have to be proactive and engaged to make sure kids are safe and healthy.
One thing that's really interesting to think about is just how fast AI is developing. It's mind-blowing. As it becomes more and more ingrained in these digital platforms that our kids are using, what's that going to mean for them in the long run? How are they going to learn? How are they going to socialize? How are they going to understand the world? It's a question we all need to be asking. And we need to stay informed and be ready to adapt to make sure our kids can thrive in this rapidly changing world.